Hello everyone, welcome to Kids Auto and Truck Repair. Today we have a Chevy Sonic. I don't know what year this Sonic is. I believe it's a 2014. So the customer complaint on this vehicle is he was driving the vehicle and then all of a sudden he heard a pop noise coming from under the hood, and after that the engine died. So this vehicle was towed to us. That's all I know. There's a popping noise that came from under the hood. So it just got dropped off. I haven't even opened the hood yet. So let's see what we got. Let's unlock the door. Now, since there was a popping noise that came from under the hood, let's open the hood and do a quick visual inspection under the hood and see what we're gonna find. So this car pretty much has the same engine like the Chevy Cruze that I just bought from my friend. Uh-oh, check this out. This is not good. Look at this. It looks like coolant mixed with engine oil. Uh-oh. What the heck? Let's check the oil level. So, did the oil mix with coolant? So the oil level is low. This is not a good sign. So what is this? Let me grab a flashlight. Let's see. As you can see, we got a milkshake all over the transmission and on top of the engine computer. Now the question is, what happened? What caused this? So let's open the coolant surge tank. Whoa, this doesn't look good. Well, now, what causes this is a blown head gasket or a leaking transmission cooler inside the radiator. Because this is an automatic transmission. If you look down here on the radiator, we have transmission cooler lines. So these lines over here, this one, these lines, they are coming from the transmission. They go on the side of the radiator. Actually, this is one of them. There's one up here and there's another one on the bottom. So on this side of the radiator, there is a transmission fluid cooler inside the radiator. So on the outside of the transmission cooler, there is coolant that cools the fluid that circulates throughout the fluid cooler, and then it goes back into the transmission. So if that cooler leaks, it's going to allow transmission fluid to mix with coolant because that transmission cooler is inside the radiator. If it leaks, you will have this milkshake. So that's one thing that can cause this. Or you could have a burnt out cylinder head gasket that's causing coolant to mix with engine oil. So those are the two main things that can cause this to happen. So now, actually, I don't want to start the engine. Let me see if we can do some investigating work here to figure out what happened. Because I'm a little bit curious about how the tip of the dipstick looks, because the tip of the dipstick looks clean. Okay, so I'm gonna wipe the tip of the dipstick down right here. Let's stick it back into the dipstick tube. I'm gonna pull it out. Let's see how it looks. Okay, so we don't have the milkshake inside the engine. So the issue is probably not a burnt head gasket. This might be transmission fluid leaking inside the cooling system. And when this happens, you have to pretty much clean the entire cooling system. You have to flush the entire cooling system, and you also have to replace the transmission, because when coolant goes inside the transmission, it damages all the components in it. So it looks like over here we have a transmission cap. Let me see. Okay, so this is a little transmission dipstick. Let's open it and see if we're gonna have this milkshake inside the transmission. If we find the milkshake in the transmission, that means coolant is going inside the transmission. And the only component that's gonna allow coolant to go in the transmission will be our transmission fluid cooler. So I don't see a milkshake in there. I don't know if you guys can see. I don't see a milkshake there. I'm gonna grab the engine the engine dipstick. Okay, so this is the engine dipstick. Let's stick it in here to see if we can touch some fluid. Okay, check this out. We don't have a milkshake here. Okay, so the issue is probably not in the transmission. Okay, here's what I'm gonna do. Let's put this cover back. Oops. Let's put this little cover back. I mean, the inside of the transmission looks clean. That milkshake stuff is not in the transmission. Okay, so now the engine doesn't have any oil in it. Should we put oil in the engine before we crank it? Because we don't want to crank the engine with no oil in it, because we could cause some damages. The engine could be damaged already. Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put a little bit of oil in the engine. I don't want to take the chance of cranking this engine without any oil. Let's put a little bit of oil in it, and then we're gonna crank the engine to listen to the engine and hear how it sounds. If we don't hear any compression, if this engine doesn't sound bad, if we hear like a weird noise, like a motorcycle engine noise, kind of like wee, if there's a weird noise coming from the engine, that will mean there's no compression, and the issue will be a burnt head gasket based on what we see over here. Okay, so let me put some oil in it, and then we're gonna crank the engine. Let's put some oil in this engine. Now, we could just be wasting this oil, but it's better to be safe than sorry. I'm gonna put a little bit of oil in the engine before we crank this thing. I'm not gonna put a lot. I just need to put enough so we can safely crank this engine. Let me check the level. So we have enough oil in the engine. So this is good. We can safely start the engine now. I'm curious to hear how this engine is gonna sound, because what I see over here under the hood does not look good. So now I'm gonna go in the vehicle and crank the engine. All right, let's see what we got. Oh, wow. Another one with low compression. This is bad. Let's crank this one more time. Oh, wow. I hope you can hear the engine cranking. This engine has, how many miles does this thing have? 217,000 miles. So right there, 217,785. This vehicle has a lot of miles. Let's crank it again. Low compression on all the cylinders. Defective head gasket. Oh man, another Chevy that's gonna need an engine. Let's go back under the hood. Based on how the engine sounds, I believe our issue is a defective head gasket. So what I want to do is, since removing the valve cover on this engine is very easy, so I would like to take the valve cover out so we can see if we have, I can't really see, I mean, you can see a little bit through this through the filler cap. I hope you can see right there. So we have the milkshake in the filler cap. Okay, so this over here tells us that the issue is a cylinder head gasket. Now, what I'm about to do might be a little bit of an overkill, but it's always good to check and double check yourself before making the call. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to remove the coil, and then I'm gonna remove one of the spark plugs. We're gonna put a compression gauge on it, and then we're gonna crank it. Oh, actually the bolts for the ignition coil are loose. Huh, that's odd. I wonder if someone was already here. This is like deja vu for me, because we pretty much did the same thing a couple days ago on the Chevy Cruze that I bought from my friend. Check this out. The coil is filled with oil. That's not good. That's bad. Okay. So I'm gonna disconnect this harness over here. This harness over here just pulls up, just like that. This is the same engine like the Chevy Cruze that I just got. So we're gonna remove the valve cover. We're gonna do a compression test, and after that we should be good to go. I mean, I already know the issue at this point, but I just want to double check and triple check myself before we call the customer and tell the customer what we found. All right, so I got all the bolts for the valve cover undone. Oh, there's one more over here that I forgot. We got this one here. Hi, Bob. I got my friend Bob behind the camera. Actually, I'm just doing this really fast, and then I'll be all yours, Bob.
Are you recording?
Yeah, I'm recording, yeah. So I got this Chevy here. I mean, I can tell you what's going on. So the owner of this vehicle is one of my customers. So he brought his Mercedes to me for service I think it's been like 2 weeks. And then he called me 2 weeks later and said, actually, Dio, I have a Chevy Sonic. It's my son's car. I want you to look at it. I said, sure. He said he was driving and then he heard a loud pop coming from under the hood. So there was a pop and then the engine died. So they towed it to the shop. They towed it last week, actually. I didn't have time to look at it. So I looked at it this morning. I came and opened the hood. Check out what I found.
Yeah, that looks like oil in the antifreeze.
Yes, so I believe the head gasket went out. It's allowing coolant to mix with oil. So I'm gonna do a compression test. I mean, because at this point, I mean, the head gasket is out, but I just wanna double check and make sure that, okay, so I wanna remove the valve cover so I can see inside. I mean, since the valve cover is pretty easy to remove on this one, so what I'm doing right now is kind of an overkill. But since I'm filming this, I'm sure I'll have people asking me questions like, oh, what about if one of the cams broke, or if something, so because I can kind of anticipate some of the questions that I will get.
Sure.
So what I'm doing right now is,
It looks like it had catastrophic failure.
yes. So something happened. I don't know if it overheated and then the head gasket got burnt. I don't know. But it has something to do with the head gasket, because I don't see what else that can cause coolant to mix with oil. This is interesting. Actually, I thought I was gonna find this milkshake in the engine.
Yeah.
It's not there. Now okay, so guys, here is the valve cover. As you can see, we don't have the milkshake inside the valve cover. Now, what could have happened is maybe when he heard the pop, he turned it off immediately. Mm-hmm. So coolant didn't really go all the way in the engine, maybe. So now it's odd because I was expecting to find this in the engine. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna remove one spark plug, and then I'll put a compression gauge on it. Yeah, and the
gold color is kind of odd, isn't it?
Yeah, look at that.
It almost looks like some type of block sealer or something.
Kinda.
Like we sell the bars leak stuff in the bottle, and that's what color that stuff is.
Oh, really? Okay, let me see. Now, the other thing I noticed was when I removed the ignition coil, the coil was loose. So I wonder if someone already checked it out. So let me get this spark plug out. Oh, look at that. This is coolant.
Oh, yeah.
There's coolant on the spark plug. I don't know if you guys will be able to see it, but yeah, there's coolant on the spark plug, so that's not a good sign. So I'm gonna attach my compression gauge here. Let's see. Oh, come on. Oh, right here. I'm dropping stuff. All right, so we're gonna attach this into the spark plug hole. Yeah, this is this doesn't look good. All right, so we got this attached to the plug hole. All right. Actually, Bob, can you do me a favor, please? Can you crank this for me? Thank you. Okay, so the engine is cranking. Go one more time. As you can see, our cams are spinning. Let's check the gauge. We're building no compression. All right, crank it one more time. All right, that's good. Yeah, this engine is toast. It's not building compression, Bob. This is bad. All right, well, we're done.
Yeah, it sure doesn't sound good.
No, it doesn't. No compression. Okay, so both of our cams are spinning, so which means the timing belt didn't snap. Yeah. I don't know if it overheated. I don't know. We are done with our diagnosis. This vehicle does not have compression on all the cylinders. and I believe the head gasket is mixing coolant with engine oil. So the head gasket is allowing coolant to go into the oil jackets. So we're gonna leave it like that. I mean, this is like deja vu for me because we were doing the same thing on the Chevy Cruze that I have out there. So I'm gonna restate what I stated a couple of days ago. It's windy outside, so I hope you guys can hear me. With this issue, with an issue like this, we can go two ways. We can take the engine apart and rebuild it, or we can replace the engine. Now, just like my friend Bob mentioned, when you look at this valve cover, there are numbers on the valve cover, okay? There are letters here. So it looks like this is a junkyard engine. So at this point, the question would be, should we recommend a remanufactured engine or a used engine? You guys know where I stand with that. I'm gonna recommend a remanufactured engine all day long. So I'm gonna make two estimates, one for the remanufactured engine and then another one with a used engine. Actually, I will make three estimates. One estimate which is gonna involve rebuilding the engine, taking the engine apart, sending the cylinder head to the machine shop and all the gasket kit and timing belt kit and everything. That will be the first estimate. Second estimate will be replacing the engine with a used engine with low miles. And then the third estimate will be replacing the engine with a remanufactured engine. Now, knowing that this engine has over 200,000 miles, so I don't know what option the owner is gonna pick. So I will do that and then we'll see what option the customer is gonna go with. Now, before we end this video, I wanna call the customer and let the customer know about what we found. So let's call him and see if he's gonna pick up. Let's see if he's gonna pick up. Okay, customer is not picking up. So that's it. I'm gonna leave this right over here. Like I said, I'm gonna make three estimates and send them to the customer, and then the customer will choose what option he's gonna go with. So I hope you like this video. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like the video, give it a thumb down. But if you do, you gotta tell me why so we can make better videos in the future. If this is your first time here, subscribe to the channel. Ring the bell so you can get notified every time we upload a new video. If you have any comments, questions, criticism, leave them in the comment box. Thanks for watching. See you next time.